So, hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk SAP. And this is the Talk with Expert series where we talk with the wonderful minds in SAP. So, today we are going to talk about SAP FICO, and for that, we have Daniel with us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to the organizers for Let's Talk to participate in that great session. My name is Daniel Mateo. I'm SAP S/4HANA project manager, and I'm mainly focused in international projects. I have over 14 years of experience in SAP implementations in multiple subsidiaries around Europe, America, and Asia. My main expertise is in finance and controlling, but I also have broad experience in logistics and some technical modules. In addition to that, I have professional certificates such as SAP Activate Project Manager, S/4HANA Financial Accounting, PMP, ITIL, among others. So it's a complete pleasure to participate, and let's begin.
That's nice. And what are the, like, if I ask what SAP FICO is in a layman term, how would you define it? That is.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, FICO is one of the biggest modules in SAP, and it's mainly related with other modules like logistics, human resources, and the main goal of this module is to have all the financial statements ready for the month-end activities. So the idea of the finance and also controlling is all of the relevant operations that the company is being performed is generating a finance or controlling document. What's the difference between FI and CO? That's important. I can share the screen
Yeah, sure,
just
please.
to see the biggest differences for these two modules. The FI, that is the finance, is one of the main ones, and the main objective is to generate the financial statements, always defined for the external reporting. What does it mean? That all the reports that are needed to be generated for legal requirements or for report to the tax or national authorities for each country will be generated. So mainly we can have, or I can show you bigger,
Yeah.
we have the main three statements that FI is generating: the balance sheet, cash flow, and income statement. All of those main three reports are for external purpose to provide to tax authorities.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the CO is focused in internal reporting. So what does it mean? That it's the module to generate reports for making easier the way to taking decisions, and they are based on the areas of the company. So you define which areas do you want to analyze and how to define the profits that you want to report, but only for internal purpose of analysis to make easier the decision making.
Okay. So, is it like two different thing, or we have different FI consultant and different CO consultant, or both of them work closely together, or how it is? Like the single guy works for both, how it goes?
That's a good question. There are two separate modules, and that's true that there are some consultants that they are handling both modules, but it takes more experience or it takes more time to handle both of the modules. So usually there are, as both of them are related, the FI expert will also have some knowledge in CO, but not in all the different submodules. And for the CO, as it's a bit more specific, they also understand FI, but maybe they are not as expert in all the modules. So each of the different modules will have submodules that we can check afterwards. And there are experts in FI, experts in CO, but also there can be experts in both modules. But there are different. It's same as logistics, that you can have sales, purchasing, or production planning, warehouse management. It's also different modules at all.
Okay. And are these independent or they are independent of each other? Like,
well, that's a good question. They are very related, as the FI is always posting any relevant document for external reports. So what does it mean? Any document that will go in the balance sheet or the profit and loss will be posted. But only CO controlling documents will be posted for P&L, profit and loss postings. So the number of postings will be more reduced in controlling. As in FI, you will have all of the postings, both balance sheet and also for profit and loss, but for controlling, we will have only the income statements, that is the profit and loss, but with the complete detail for companies can analyze the information that we'll have, either by cost center or by profitability analysis.
Understood. That was such nice explanation. And can we move on, since we are already on slide? Can we move on to the slide where we talk about what are the sub modules that are there in FI and CO respectively?
Right. So both FI and CO are big modules, and both of them are split in submodules that mainly the consultants are focused in multiple of them, or they are expert in one of them. As part of FI, that there are 4 external reports. The biggest one is the general ledger accounting. That is the basic one, and it allows to identify all of the postings or the finance documents that are being generated. So we need to create the different general ledger accounts, and once a posting is done, they will be automatically use the general ledger accounts. But apart of that, there are subledgers that they are also used in addition to the general ledger account. So what are the main subledgers? One is the accounts payable, that it relates to all of the vendors or suppliers operation. So what does it mean? There are all the invoices that at some time will be paid. So all of the vendor operations will fit in that subledger. Then we have another subledger that is for the account receivable, that are the customers. All the customer operations will fit in that module, since you post the invoice until the collection. Then we have the bank accounting, that are all the bank relevant operations, either petty cash or all the clearing accounts for bank. And finally, the fixed asset accounting, that it relates to the different assets that the entity will have available in their financial statements. So the main one is the general ledger accounting, but then each of the different subledgers will contain specific information and also different master data. And there are those ones.
So I would just like
As
to
part,
ask one thing here. So as silly as it may sound, so all my salaries come from this account payable submodule, is it?
right. All, for instance, what is important also, understand that MM, that is material management, or SD, that are the sales and distribution, they are directly linked to the subledger in finance. So, for instance, while you are posting or while you are creating a purchase order, you are identifying the vendor, to which vendor relates the purchase order. At the time that you post the invoice, this module or this area will be updated with the information from the invoice. Same as the billing for the customers, they are being automatically updated with this module.
And all the asset I got from the company, like my laptops and mouse, all belong to that asset accounting bucket.
Right. All the fixed assets, for instance, yes, all the different buildings, machines, or even all the laptops, desks, they are fixed assets and they are being created as asset accounting. Yeah, that's right. And as part of controlling, this is a bit more specific, and I will not go into detail, but what is the idea? Depending on which or in which level of detail do you want to report your balance, your profit and loss statement, you can use one of those options. So, what is the difference between them? That depends if you are posting a revenue account, that it's an income that you mainly will use profitability analysis or profit center accounting. This is how to split your revenue in case that you want to identify the, for instance, in which sectors or in which areas do you want to report your profits, for instance, or even the country market. In which countries are you getting much more profit, and for which customers are you getting more one, or if you are, for instance, producing.
So it's more like reporting kind of thing, or how is
Yes. Internal reporting to see how are your profits going through, and in which level of detail are being posted. You can define as many characteristics as you want to report. And then the other ones are mainly for cost. So what does it mean? All the costs that you are, or that the company are being incurred, they will use some of these elements that will allow to analyze what are the areas that they are spending much more money, or if there are, in case of production, you will have the product costing. If you have a factory and you want to split all the cost for the different raw materials and the electricity and the different utilities that you are using, you will use product costing. If you want to use mainly departments, you will use cost center. So more or less are the biggest modules, but what the idea of both FI and CO are a bit broad, and they contain many submodules, and each of them it's very specific. So I know consultants that are only focused in fixed asset accounting, or as part of controlling the cost accounting or the cost center accounting. They are the basic ones, and also the finance consultants will understand a bit. But if you go in detail for all the activities or all the product costing, profitability analysis, those are specific consultants that they will handle the areas of expertise.
Okay, that was so functional knowledge right here there, and that makes me wonder that how much technical and how much functional understanding we need to work in this module. So, for example,
Right.
if we talk about fitness and everything, we generally think that 80% is all about your diet and the rest is about the 20% is about your exercise, right? So, in the same way, how much if we talk about the technical knowledge and what is the share of functional knowledge if we talk about a great SAP FICO consultant?
Right, that's a good question. The idea is always first having a background for finance. So it's not the FICO. There are not many technical knowledge. Mainly are functional knowledge, and it's important before starting learning the FICO modules to have some background in finance. You need to understand what is or what are the different basic type of reports, what's the chart of accounts, and what is a financial document posting. If it's debit, credit. So this is basic first to start in SAP. So that's mainly functional. Then you need also to understand the finance flows. So finance it's not difficult at all, but it's related to other modules. So you need to understand while you are posting any type of invoice, or while you need to pay the salaries, or if you want to perform some I don't know, some goods received, or you are delivering some goods, you need to understand what are the basic postings of that. And then the idea is that SAP has as a configuration the relation of each operation to which GL account will go, and then you can build the process. So as part of technical, that's right, that you need to understand what are the main key tables that are related in finance, and also it's useful if you want to debug to identify some errors. So if you know debugging, it's also more useful just if you want to identify some bug. But I will suggest that as part of finance or FICO, it's around 80% functional and around 20% technical.
Okay, so basically you should have a great understanding of finance to be exact, to just start in the module.
Right. But most of the SAP consultants for FICO, they already study some economics or some MBA, or at least have some finance background. Otherwise, it's sometimes a bit difficult to understand. But there are some classes that you can take before starting SAP, at least to understand what's a financial statement, what is the P&L, what is the balance sheet, what are all the debit and credit postings that there are common to perform. That's very recommendable.
So you have been working in SAP FICO for so long. What are some life hacks you want to give? Like what do you use and what are the things that you think
Right.
SAP FICO should work on?
Yeah, in case of FICO, it's very important to use the Microsoft Excel or any other Office spreadsheet tool. So most of the analysis that in FICO are being done, you need to use that tool. So for me, to use the pivot table, it's mandatory for a FICO consultant. So you need to always analyze at first get all the totals, and then you can create a pivot table to review what are the different documents. So the problem of finance are that all the reports contain a lot of items. So each of the operations that is being performed is generating at least 2 items in the finance reports. So what are the common tasks to be performed are always matching the finance versus another report or another chart. So it's very common to export all the line items and then try to make subtotals or pivot table for getting the grouping maybe by vendor and by period. And then with that, you can analyze sometimes much better. And then if you find some difference, you can go through the details. So it's very important.
So basically, even the reporting thing is very needed in this, and we should have a visual representation also, because the people we are giving it as end user basically don't have limited time, so they need to have a quick view and understand how it is going and what are the product costing and everything, right?
Right. And if for some reason there are some postings that are not correct, you need to export all of the related postings, and then you need to in some way identify what is the root cause for that. Apart of the that tip is also very important. As part of taxes, there are a lot of files that are being generated. There are XMLs, there are also some TXTs. For payment files are also some other things, some specific files. And I recommend also to have a very or a very or powerful word processor. So kind of TextPad +++ or some other of these tools in order to be able to load or to open files with thousands of items and easy to compare files. So there are some software that allow to compare files and identify the different tags, and that's also useful in finance as long as a part of reports you are generating the legal files to submit to the tax authorities and also to the banks. So it's also very useful to have that. And another hack or another tip that I would suggest is also have a very analytical mind. So I recommend also, while you have a problem, to identify what are the possible options or what are the possible root cause for this issue. And then start breaking down in small tasks. And then with those tasks, try to assign to the different people that will work on that and try to address. And while you address all the tasks, the main issue or the main problem will be
dealing with small problems by one people and then just minimizing the overall problem.
Right. So what's the problem, or what is usually in finance while you are generating a report is not only one error. There are sometimes multiple deviations. So it's first to identify what are the pattern of those deviations, and then classify the different patterns, and then focus in splitting by task. And that's so useful.
So you have been working as a project manager also. So what are the when you go on for implementation, what are the requirement gathering things that are needed, and how we do it, and how we easily do it, and what should must be in our list, and what should be checkpoints for it basically?
Yes, so that's a very good question. And it's also very important while you are starting a project to do a real or accurate requirements gathering. So that's the most important task to be successful in the project. And what I always recommend is to be always to set the expectations with the customer and work together since the project is starting, and following the SAP Activate methodology is involving the key users, and also not only the high level managers, also the key users, and showing a prototype for the solution following the best practices. So first is to prepare just implementing the best practices in S/4HANA, the prototype, a sandbox. And then you work with the key users, only focusing in identify what are the gaps that SAP is not covering, and which are the most important ones to be addressed, and which ones are not prioritized. So it's once the prototype is done, is after this task, it's very important to get the list of all the gaps and prioritize all of them for importance, and define an action plan with all the gaps, and then make sure that the core functionality match with the business requirements. So at least the finance core should match the requirements in with business, not to have a lot of gaps. As part of finance, based on my knowledge, mainly they are requesting some specific reports or some automatic process that they are performing out of the system. But there shouldn't be many gaps that the standard solution is not covering. So as part of the finance implementations, the standard covers all of the main tax or legal requirements for each of the countries. So it's very powerful. So it's trying to minimize the gaps and prioritize all the gaps and define an action plan. And with that, the project will be much more smooth.
Yeah, I think it's the same way, because whenever we talk about requirement gathering, the main thing is understanding the client requirements, that what they are looking for. They might be looking for something really low, and you have just a high set of thinking that they will be needing this, they will be needing that, and that's why you can just take up more time or do additional costing of your firm instead of delivering what they actually needed. So yeah, that's initial that we have a great relation with customer at this phase, at like particularly that what their needs are.
Right, and it's important during all the while the project is being executed to stay in touch with the customer and all the key users to make sure that they are understanding all the process and involving them before having the solution done. There is important to display all the demos, and meanwhile the solution is being built, to work with them and make sure that they understand what is or what are the process behind.
So since we are on this topic, can we, for example, say I am running a pizza company, and like a pizza delivery firm, something I create pizzas and deliver it to people. So, what are the requirement that FICO side person will need from my end? Like, what are the things that I should tell them, and they should ask me? But most of it, they should ask me what's the issue is. Like, what are my
Right.
requirements, and yeah. So, what will be those few questions in a very broader perspective?
Right. Yeah, that's very practical. So the idea is first identify how many entities or financial companies will have, and then for which chart of accounts they are reporting. If they are using also the IFRS, the US GAAP accounting, or which level of accounts they want to plan, and then which currencies they use. So as part of finance, the good thing is that you can define as many currencies as the entity require and the system is converting. But this is one of the first levels is to create the entities, then define which currencies you want to report, and then based on which financial statements you want. If it's based on the international accounting, IFRS, US GAAP, local tax accounting, and then you go through detail for all the accounts, which year accounts you want to create, and then how many customers, vendors, fixed assets, bank accounts. So each of the different modules that we go through, they are just some specific questions, but they are more in detail that will go one specific session for each of the different modules.
That's just opened my perspective as well in FICO. Thanks for that. So I just wonder, like, we grow as we learn, and we learn as we grow. It is said that in that way. So, what are expectations from various set of people, like various set of experienced people? What are expected from people who has having 2 years of experience? What is expected from people who are having 5 years of experience? What is expected from people with 8 years of experience? Can you put some light on that? That what you should know if you are up to of 2 years experience, what you should at least know. This must. This is at least you should know. So, what are the things? If I ask you?
Yeah, that's it's interesting question. So, in that case, sometimes the years are not always related to the experience that or to the knowledge that they can handle. So, for me, much more than the number of years, I would suggest the number of projects or the different companies or the different challenge that they have. So for instance, I have some colleagues that they are always in the same company doing the same task for more than 15 years. And those people are very focused only in a specific sector and always doing the same tasks. And if they try to change in another project, they are not flexible. And people with 4 years of experience, they are already participating in 6 projects, and they are much more, or they have much more knowledge and much more areas that they manage.
Yeah, they are more versatile in a way.
Yeah, but as an overview, what you can expect is people from 0 or freshers up to 3 years is just is the first approach to SAP. So they are learning a lot, and that's the moment that they want or they need to focus in which areas they want to be more expert. So FICO is very broad, and I recommend, it's difficult to handle all of the modules in 8-10 years. You maybe need 15 years to master all of the modules. So with 2, 3 years, what I recommend is focus in one submodule and try to participate in as many projects in the modules that you want to focus. But this is the moment that you are learning. You are learning the first 3-4 years, and in Europe it's considered as junior consultant, that you are mainly handling the basic, and you are consolidating the knowledge. After that, 4 to 6, 7, 8 years, you are already, or you have consolidated the knowledge, and you are able just to talk with business in an autonomous way. You don't need anybody that are supervising you while you are talking with the business, but you are mastering mainly 1-2 modules, and after that, after 7 years, 8, you are becoming a senior consultant, and in that time, either you can focus in extending your knowledge in a different submodules, or participating in projects around different sectors. So as part of finance, you have the modules that we have explained, but also the sectors is not the pharma finance month-end closing processes are slightly different than the factories, and if you take a service or a company that handles services, are also very different. So in that case, as a summary, is from 0 to 3 is junior consultant, then from 3 to 5 is just a consultant that can be more autonomous, and then from 8 to up to are senior consultants, and then more than 10 are experts, but they can move also to project management tasks, or to leading some teams after 10 years of experience, more or less.
Agreed. So you have been working for consultant, and then you were shifted to the project manager role. So what's the difference you feel in yourself? Like, what are the things you changed as a consultant you are doing differently, and as a manager you're doing differently? Can you post something
Right.
on that?
In that case, that's very different tasks, but they are related after all. So the consultant needs to be a master in the finance or in the modules that they work, and they need to, or they at least should understand what are the tasks, or how to address all of the different configurations. So the consultant is the people who will solve, or who will address the configuration and covering the main gaps. So they need to have a background in finance, understand the business requirements, and then they need to propose what are the best approach, or the best solution for covering those gaps. And with that, they are the main responsible for building the solution, and also for testing the solution, that they are one of the main tasks for the consultant. The project manager, they need also to understand all the different relationship that a module contain, but it's not needed as much detail as an expert or a senior consultant. So the project manager itself, the main task is to organize the team in the best way to achieve the goal, and organize what are the tasks to be performed, and in which exact time should be performed. So the project manager will always be supported by the experts, and you can ask for the experts for each area what are the tasks to be performed, and then the project manager will build the plan for running all of the different tasks in as much smooth as possible, and identify all the risks. If there are some delay, which options shall we have? If there are some communication issues with the customer, or if the customer are not available as expected, there are some mechanisms or some ways to track those risks and then follow up with them. So, as summary, the project manager, it has an overview of all the different areas, but the full detail of the project. And he is the owner for achieving the goal to deliver the project on time. But the project manager is not focusing in detail for each of the tasks. Meanwhile, the consultant is always the owner for configuring and testing the system.
Yeah. So basically, making the timeline was a very new thing that was added to your role as you became a project manager, and even the client interaction would have been increased. So, what are the few things that you should take care while you are interacting with client, and how you should be more precise and clear that what you are communicating with them?
But here, for me, the important thing is to identify the risks and making sure what are the most priority tasks, and make sure that the most priority tasks are not being delayed. So while the project is being executed, there are a lot of tasks, but some tasks can be performed at any time, and others should be always performed at before being able to start another task. So you should make sure that all the tasks are being performed as expected, and identify which are the risks in case that a task is being delayed, and always being transparent to the customer. So it's, for me, a recommendation is always to communicate with the customer and set expectations. And if there is some delay, to communicate as soon as possible and not wait until the delay is getting bigger. At least to identify what is the reasons and discuss with them which options we have. If we need to maybe change the scope, reduce the scope and do less work items, or maybe expand the calendar and do it maybe in 2-3 months later, or it depends on the situation, but it's the communication and the risk management are the most important tasks as a project manager. And also leading with teams. So the thing is, you need to keep engaged the team.
You should know the competency, like what is strength and weakness of a particular person who is in your team, and who can perform good in what kind of situation. Yeah.
Right. And also communicate with them and making sure that they are at least engaged with the project and which task they are or they would like to perform. Also to make them able to grow in the company.
Yeah. So, what were your magic moments in your journey that just sparked that, okay, now I should do this, now I should do that, or okay, now I should also pursue this alongside this. So what were the magic moments in your life?
Well, yeah, in that case, for me as being a SAP consultant or project manager, that allowed me to travel a lot to many countries. When I started, I was just in a project located in Barcelona, but my second project, it was mainly for all of the branches or subsidiaries in South America. And at that time, I was just having 4 years of experience in SAP, and I was traveling for many places in South America. And for me, learning new cultures, also the way of working and the legal requirements for each of the different countries are completely different. So it was very challenging, and I learned a lot, and for me it was very rich with that. And after that, I was focused in international projects. Once I got that experience, I love that, and I keep working on that. And for me, I think it's the most magical or the most wonderful opportunities for SAP consultant. So one of the things that it's important to mention is that SAP is mainly dedicated for big companies. And as part of finance, one of the good things is that they make the reporting in a more powerful way in case that they have branches all around the world. So the entities that are bigger, they have a lot of subsidiaries in South America, Asia, or in any other countries. So it's also easy to travel with being a SAP consultant.
Yeah, as you said, I also think the same way that facing issues are a very important part of growing. Once you have faced the storm, then everything seems easy to you. Like you can think, yeah, okay, I can do this also, I can do this also. And that only makes you a good consultant, that if you have faced the issue, that's I think everyone should pray for, okay, I should get these issue daily on a daily basis, which makes me a great consultant in future, rather than having an easy day. If you are facing new issues, that's really great to grow for your personal and even your company beneficiaries. So what do you think the fresher should do, like once he or she is starting his career as a FICO consultant? What are the learning resources, and what should be the possible way of learning for the freshers, to be specific?
Right. The good thing is that SAP currently there are a lot of sources to learn the main basics for SAP. So before starting in finance, at least, I recommend to have some background, or at least understand all the finance terms, all the naming conventions for finance, how an FI document looks like, what is a financial statement, how to perform the tax declarations. Those are the basics. So it will take, if they don't have any background in finance, it may take 3-4 months in mastering all of the basics for finance reporting and management accounting. There are all the how to report the profit and loss statements. Once they have that knowledge, I would suggest first to start checking the blogs. There are multiple blogs that they explain how the finance work. First, get the overview about finance, and then pick one module, general ledger, that is the basic one, and then start with which are the concepts, how to link the general ledger with the real scenarios. So when you are starting, what's the problem? That SAP has hundreds of pages and there are a lot of documents, but first think in a real scenario, in a company. You already have background in finance, so the freshers, as they have already information for finance, let's think in one real scenario. They want to perform that process. How will be in the real life? Okay, and then try to identify how will be in SAP, but not entering any transaction, just to thinking about how it will be, and then try to search relative or information about that process. And once they are understanding the process, finally they can get a server to practice that process, and then once they are practicing, they are fine, then move to another process. And they should do it step by step. What's the problem? That there are some freshers that they want to get the FI certification in 1 month. And what they do is they read the book every day, but what they are doing, they are not acquiring the knowledge. They are just memorizing the content. They will pass the exam. Yeah, they can pass the exam in 1 month, but that will not be useful in a long term. What I recommend is always have a background and understand the process and how this process relates in SAP. Then, once you are understanding that process, test in the system and see how it is. And when you are understanding the process, you can jump to other process, and step by step. It takes time for sure, but that's also an investment in also self-learning. And if in case that you are a fresher or anyone that is a fresher, what I recommend also start by big four entities or by IT companies that are pretty big and close to your location or close to the place you live, since they are having a lot of internships, they allow to train or to get some training or some learning hub or some access to training materials, and you can start from the beginning and then learn all the different processes, and time after time you are mastering the process.
Exactly. I also think it's the same way that people just rushing into, just mugging up it in 1 month before learning how to walk. They tend to learn how to run and all. So yeah, that's the issue. But generally the freshers face. They should just go the way you suggested. So as we are on the certification topic, how do you think as of certification? Is it mandatory for in nowadays, or how it goes?
That's some tricky questions. It depends. So how do you want to start? For me, the certification itself is not a must. As I know people with 20 years of experience without any certification. But that's true that it's a way to make it easier the beginnings. So the certification itself is a proof that you at least understand the basic, but it's not showing if you how practical or how can you handle the system more practical way, and what will be your communication, what are your skills in the computer side, or how to solve the errors. The certification is just you have the knowledge, or at least the basic knowledge in that area. But only having that certification is not enough. So you need also to have practice or some experience in any area. It's not needed to work in a company, but I recommend there are some servers that you can test and you can do some configuration, you can prepare training material, there is the option to generate videos, and with that, although you don't have a professional experience, you can go to the companies and tell, I have the knowledge as I have the certification, but I'm also doing the configuration for those scenarios. And you can show a demo.
Yeah, your hands-on actually look on when it's even if the certification is not present, your hands-on look on your certificate that you have been doing something.
Right. But for me, when I started SAP, I didn't get the certification. I started in a Big Four entity, and they trained me. And 2 years later, I got a certification, but it's not mandatory. It's advisable, or it's recommendable if you want to start. If you want to make an investment, it can be. But it's better how to work, understand the process, and what are your capabilities as part of problem solving.
Agree. So, are you working remote right now, or you have to go to the office?
Right. Since 2 years ago, I have never been in the office again since COVID started. I haven't.
Even same for me. So, what do you think? The remote culture is there to exist, or we are going to in a hybrid model, or it's going to be again work from office? How do you think it will be going on?
I think that's a difficult question depending on how the COVID improves. But I think the future.
What's your perspective on this? How it should be?
I think that will be mainly hybrid. So there are also the important tasks that are done better in person, just to share all the knowledge and stay the team together in terms of addressing some topics, and also with the customers. If you want to make some workshop or prepare while you are before some critical tasks and they are overdue or they are late, it's important to have all the team together, and it's easier to discuss the topics. So for those moments, I think that it's important to perform the task on site. For the daily basis, all the tasks that can be done individually or completely remote, there are no problems. It depends also on the team. There are teams that they work pretty good in a remote way, and others that are difficult to handle if they are not on site. But at least in Europe, now they are starting to come back to the office, but maybe 1-2 days per week.
Hybrid kind of person.
And the rest remotely.
So that brings to my last question. What do you think about freelance consultant in SAP FICO? Is there a thing called freelancing in SAP FICO? And if someone wants to do it, how to do it and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a very common question that I disregard. And it depends on what are your expectations. Freelance is a good opportunity as long as you are not afraid of changing projects often. So freelance allows you to participate in many projects as you are always focused in the tasks that you will perform during the project. But you need to be aware that once the project is complete, you may not continue with that, and you may need to switch to other project. In my case, luckily, I haven't any issue finding a new assignment. But you should be flexible to change or to move to between sectors. You need also to have a good networking in order to understand first what are the job requirements and what are the main skills that they are demanded. As freelancer, you always need to self-learn. S4HANA is always changing, there are new improvements, and there are some modules that are pretty new. There are some functionalities that they are being delivered in the coming years. So as freelance, you need to always learn the new trends and always focus in improve your knowledge in those areas and willing always to change either countries or projects in order to reach the goal. So currently, that's true that there are, as part of finance, a lot of freelancers, but there are also a lot of vacancies. So it's not easy to get a job straightforward. You need to make many processes or many interviews, but it's not a difficult task at all, as long as you have good references and a deep knowledge in some areas. For being freelancer, that's important: networking, having good references, always willing to learn.
When your portfolio speaks for you, you should also work for customers who give you good, and you need a good review to get new projects.
What do you mean, sorry?
And you need good reviews, and you need good reviews to get new customers. Right. That's how it works.
Right. And also, what is the thing, at least in Europe, that the SAP world is quite small, and you know more or the most of the people who were assigned to a specific project. So if they know that there will be a new vacancy or they are planning to start a project, it's easier to reach to you as long as you have some friends with them or you already work with them. So that's important. And also for me it's very important to work hard and trying to reach all the goals and do your best, at least to make sure that they are happy with you and the next opportunities they will count with you.
So as we are talking about learning and coping up, so what I generally use is I use the Open SAP courses for thing, and then the SCN blogs and Learning Hub. Like apart from Let's Talk SAP, you should follow, and what are the various people you should follow for reliable content and who always share knowledge and who are great in sharing, and they're doing great for the community by sharing their knowledge with us. So do you have any names for that?
Sure, yes. I can share in the screen since it will be much more easier. So as part of the SAP community, I recommend the blogs SAP, that this is the official website that contains all the postings that relate, and there is the option to tag the different areas, and you are getting automatic emails once a new post is done in that tag. So that is important. Another post that I recommend, blog, This is the one, the SAP Tribe,
Yeah.
that they start 1 year ago, and they have also good content
Yeah.
for finance and also for technical point of view. And apart of that, those are a bit more generic. As part of finance, I recommend 4 different profiles. That those are the links that we can share afterward.
Yeah.
Marcel is a great guy that it's from Portugal, from Brazil.
Yeah.
And he's doing a lot of videos and self-learning classes for finance. All of the basics for finance, you can get a lot of posts and very useful then. And I recommend to follow him. Apart of that, for group reporting, Stefan Nefcourt, it's is directly from SAP, and he's posting a lot of information for consolidation and group reporting functionality in finance. As part of central finance, for sure, is Nitin Gupta, one of the masters in the central finance solution. And then for controlling, Rogero Faleiros, it's also very good profile that they post for controlling. Those are only just 4, since there are a lot of people that they are sharing always useful content. So what I will recommend always is to go to that website and set the alerts for all the topics that you want to be informed about finance, and then you will get the automatic postings. That some of them will be from these 4 great profiles, but there will be another. But there are each day hundreds of postings, so that's a lot of information to process.
I'll just add these links in the description as well, so people can directly follow them on LinkedIn and their SAP community profile. So that's all from my end, and you can just we can just stop the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thanks
so
a lot
much
for being here. Thanks a lot. We extend our gratitude.